they're faster than me. Right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the very last session of the 2025 British Library food season. It's wonderful to have you all here for this afternoon's session on eating the future of food, different ways to think about how we can grow food in the future. And I am delighted that you're here and not in the martini tent. And I'm not making any judgment on those people who are, but I just want to say that I'm very proud to be here with you today. We know what we're talking about. And also you did get lovely salad samples, which you'll find out more about later. This is obviously a really fascinating subject and also a very important one as well. And this is a really wonderful panel joining us to explore this area with us. And it's going to be steered by Dan Saladino. Dan, as many of you will know, is an author, a broadcaster, an amazing researcher. He is the author of Eating to Extinction, The World's Rarest Foods and Why We Need to Save Them. That is the most beautiful exploration and deep dive into food and diversity around the world and why it matters. And his book is on sale in the bookshop, and I know that he'll be around to sign afterwards. So he really is the perfect person to be leading this discussion. So over to you, Dan.
Thank you very much, Polly. There was a bit of tension in the green room, actually, between us and the martini crowd, thinking there was some kind of unfair thing going on. But so I'm really pleased there's so many of us together in this room. And welcome to the event, which is, as Polly mentioned, part of the library's food season big weekend. And for the next hour, we're going to be talking about radical ways to feed ourselves and save the planet. So it's going to be a very productive hour if we can deliver on that. And I think we will in part because when it comes to the future of the food system, we do need radical thinking. And whether you consider climate, biodiversity, water use, river and soil quality, the impact of the way we farm and produce food and eat is overwhelmingly negative in its impact on the world. And it's unsustainable. And it's not even producing the food that we need to have an overwhelmingly positive effect on human health. So we need change and innovation. We need people out there coming up with new ways of thinking about food production and growing, how, where we do that, to help us move away from the current way of doing things. And we're about to hear from 3 very different projects, none of which are claiming to be a silver bullet solution to transforming the food system, but they could possibly each be pieces of a jigsaw representing wider change. They could also represent models that could be replicated or adapted, provide a source of inspiration for the future. And at the very least, I think each idea we'll be hearing will prompt discussion and debate. And I think that's hopefully where you come in as well, because after we hear about these ideas, I'd love to hear your thoughts and your questions to help increase our range of thinking about the potential for change. So on stage with me is Daniel Tristão. Daniel, there you are, Daniel, of Crate to Plate. We have Sarawat and Tom from Kera Protein. But let's hear first from Chloë Dunnett of Sitopia Farms and an idea of the role farms can play within cities. So Chloë, over to you.
Thank you very much. You've just franchised me, actually. We're still Sitopia Farm.
Oh, okay, sorry, Sitopia Farm, yeah.
Hi, everyone.
I'm predicting the future here. So.
I hope so. I'm going to talk a little bit about why we're doing what we're doing, how I got into farming in the first place, and what we hope can be a better vision for foods in the future.
Do you want to stand, or are you okay sitting down?
I'm okay sitting.
Yeah,
if everyone can hear me okay. So this is part of our beautiful farm. We'll be showing you various photos of what it's about. We are a certified organic farm and social enterprise. We grow vegetables and flowers and sell it to a local community in southeast London. We started just 4 years ago now on what was a field of pasture, a few sheep, Shetland pony called Bob, who's been relocated. And we believe essentially we exist because we think we can and should grow more food in the city for a whole host of health, social, environmental reasons. We are committed to changing the food system from the ground up. You know, we think we have to be the change we want to see, so we're growing good produce, selling it locally. But also we're in inner London, and we've had thousands of people come visit the farm. We want to reach many more. I fundamentally believe that getting people to come down, see the farm, think about, engage with how their food is being produced, where it comes from, that will help engender the wider change we so urgently need to see. So yeah, we're in Greenwich off Shooters Hill, the ancient Roman Watling Road, along which much food came into London. And the reason we're called Sitopia is because it means the food place. So from the Greek sitos meaning food, topos meaning place. It's a phrase coined by the wonderful Caroline Steele, who in her own words is a reformed architect turned food systems thinker. And essentially she had an epiphany around food and how we live in a world shaped by it, but it's almost too big for us to see it. There's a massive impact, obviously, on our bodies, our health, our environment, but also our economy and our culture and society. You know, if we're lucky enough to, we come together around food. We live in a bad Sitopia at the moment. I'll come to some key stats in a moment, but we think we can and should live in a good Sitopia. I was listening to her talk about the book, Sitopia, which she has written when I was thinking about a name for the farm, and I thought, that is it. And I got in touch with her. She didn't know me. Luckily, she said yes, took a punt on me, and here we are. So briefly about me, I'm the founder and chief growing officer at Sitopia Farm. We're reclaiming job titles from the corporate world. It's by far my favourite of any job title I've had. I don't come from a farming background. I grew up in Norwich, which is in East Anglia, surrounded, for those of you who don't know it, by lots of particularly arable farmland, but very much the conventional system, you know, thousands of acres, sprayed, monoculture. It wasn't something I saw myself doing. Certainly wasn't a career option at school or university anyone suggested. But it was a germ of an idea which kind of grew over time. Initially, I worked totally different sectors. I worked for international development charities in Tanzania for a few years, then based in London, travelling overseas. But then I worked in central government for over a decade. I was a senior civil servant, so very different life to the one I have now. But then a few years ago, various things happened, including the death of a really close friend. And it just made me think that life is short. What do I want to do with the rest of it? I'd had sort of growing awareness of the climate crisis and urge to not sit in an office, though I loved my job, very varied. So I left 7 years ago now. I did a master's in food policy because I was interested in how farming fit in the bigger picture around food. So that looked at whole system from production to consumption. I did various urban food growing traineeships, other courses, and then left London for a bit to work on farm in Herefordshire as a grower. A whole other story, living off-grid in a shepherd's hut through the winter to test the fancy. But then I came back to London when COVID hit. I did some food consultancy work, worked on Great Farm, Dagenham in East London, and then set up Sitopia Farm 4 years ago. Briefly, why are we doing this? Essentially, our food system is broken. You know, it's great producing a lot of food, making some people an awful lot of money, but it is making us sick and destroying the planet in the process, and many people don't have access to food or good food at all. Some key stats here for you. You know, food after energy is the biggest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. It's the foremost contributor to soil depletion, water pollution, you know, deforestation, biodiversity collapse. And we're fundamentally, our current system has disconnected us from nature and how and who produces our food. At the same time, while we have, you know, almost a third of food globally being wasted, 1 in 11 people are undernourished. 2 billion have micronutrient deficiencies, and nearly the same number overweight or obese. In the UK alone, the cost of diet-related disease, £268 billion. You know, and one of the reasons for that is only 2% advertising spent on fruit and veg. You know, it's where we make money is a lot of junk, ultra-processed food and other types of foods. Over 36% of advertising is on that. Healthy foods, twice as expensive. So, and there's, you know, inequalities in that. So the poorest fifth of households would have to spend nearly half their disposable income just to afford the government's recommended diet. Children in the UK consume less than half what they should of fruit and veg, but double the amount of sugar. You know, 1 in 4 food outlets is fast food. That's official stat, I have to say. To me, it feels like more where, you know, any garage, newsagent, corner shop you go in, it's really actual real food. It's processed stuff and drinks. There's many more stats, but I think that's the key picture. So what are we doing about it? We are growing lots and lots of different varieties of diverse, delicious vegetables, herbs, fruit, flowers. We're using organic, regenerative practices. It's working. You know, we produce tons of food and tens of thousands of stems each year. We're all about farming with nature, not against it. You can really feel, see, hear, taste the difference. You know, our farm is alive. It hums with life. People come and kind of breathe and look around and smile, and you know the taste is entirely different as well. We're all about building living soil and biodiversity. You know, if you have, they say in a teaspoon of healthy living soil, there are more microorganisms than there are people on the planet. We deplete that, avoid it at our peril. So the way we do that, all sorts of different methods. We grow a wide variety of different things, very unusual varieties of things as well. So not just tomato, we grow 20 different types of tomato. We use composting, we use green manure, so that's growing crops which we don't necessarily get a harvest from, but about restoring nutrients to the soil and help reduce weeds, reduce flooding, run off all sorts. And we use no-till, so that means we don't dig or plough the soil. When I started 4 years ago, it essentially looked like grass and weedy. And in the past, you would have probably gone in with a plough to turn that over, to turn up the soil to start planting into. But we're learning a lot more about the importance of soil biology as well as chemistry, by which I mean it's not just about the nutrients in the soil, but this whole complex web of microorganisms there, and the mycelium networks, which is kind of frontier science stuff, right? The secondary plant networks, plants communicating with each other, and that's damaged by ploughing. So instead we built upwards using cardboard. Londoners recycled green waste compost, which we still do, wood chip, all part of the circular economy approach. And it's worked. We started April 21. By June, we had our first harvest, so you can do a lot quickly. We sell direct to our local community, so we have a veg box scheme, weekly scheme, so we deliver to people's homes within a few miles radius of the farm and to different pick-up points. We also host a monthly pop-up shop at the farm, so we open up free of charge. People can come, look around, see what we're doing, how, have a conversation with us. I mean, when do you get to eyeball your producer and actually talk about how they produce your food and talk about how you might cook it? And I've also converted some people to liking produce that they thought they might not like, which I'm particularly proud of at our pop-ups. We sell wholesale as well, so to different London restaurant chefs and florists. And what we're doing is also about, as I said, trying to be part of the change we want to see, growing good food, selling it locally, but also reconnecting people with how their food is produced. So as well as how we sell locally, we run all sorts of courses, growing courses. We host team days, different organisations come and get to spend a day at the farm, community volunteering sessions, and a wide range of other things. And what do we want to see? Well, essentially a better Sitopia for all of us, you know, where everyone has access to affordable, nutritious food that isn't destroying the planet. And I fundamentally believe that's really about valuing the soil, you know, the land. And this is about people as well. This isn't just technical fixes. This is complex. This is how we distribute food, how we look after it, how we are able to access it, you know, and I believe that's about really embracing the land, regenerating the soils that deplete, not bypassing it. And really about making visible the invisible. You know, I think there's a lot that we don't think about you know, for many reasons about how our food is produced, where it comes from. I genuinely believe that the more we engage with that, the more people want to see change and help make it politically palatable for that to happen. And ultimately, we want food to be what it really is, that it's a source of joy and culture and connection. It's not just about fuel. This is going to require, this is complex, you know, this requires systems approach. It's not, you know, as Dan said, I don't think anyone's suggesting silver bullet. We need engagement across whole spheres of activity. I don't think this is about producing new types of food or lots more food. We actually do have enough land to feed us all, even in the future. You know, there's been plenty of quantitative modelling looking at this. We do need to change how we farm more efficiently, to stop using so much land to produce feed that then feeds animals. We do need to eat less meat, better meat, and waste much less food, and farm, of course, in a way much more in tune, much more nature-friendly farming. We have to address issues of access, availability, and fundamentally get to the economics around food to change things. We have to start embracing the actual true cost and value of food. There's some studies that for every pound you spend on food, there's a pound in hidden costs that are seen. They're essentially, those costs externalized at the moment on our health, on the environment. They are being picked up by someone somewhere on the planet, but actually, you know, bringing that all together. There are multiple levers for how to do that. One of the foremost, I believe, we really do need a national food strategy and action plan, you know, so it's implemented. Believe it or not, we don't have one. There have been successive governments have commissioned ones, independent, external, internal. They've all concluded similar things, that we need a strategy. We need to look at all the different aspects of policy which influence food, bring it all together, whether that's trade, transport, agriculture, health, Treasury, etc. And I think we need to be bold and radical in that. I do think we need to look at subsidies, at taxes, incentives. You know, it's worked in other areas, smoking, public, all sorts of things. We really need to start looking at that with food. I could talk much more, it's a big topic, but I need to hand on. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, and thank you, Chloë, that was great. And let me just ask a couple of questions before we move on to the next project. And I know you're describing Sitopia Farm as a model, something that actually could be part of a different kind of system in the future, but just taking the 2 acres as it is, whether based on the boxes that go out or the people who you're interacting with, how many people can you feed in the city from 2 acres?
Yeah, but it's always a difficult question to answer that because it depends what people are eating and where else. I mean, we produce several tons of food each year. We do 75 veg boxes. We could produce a lot more, and that's on top of all the other routes to market, so restaurants, chefs, etc. We could produce more even on that 2 acres. The limiting factor is labour. It's my most expensive cost, and of course access to more land.
And on the land question, so one of the big barriers to people becoming farmers, or there's so many people out there who want to grow food, the obstacle is access to land. Expensive in rural areas, I would imagine even more expensive in urban areas. Why do you say there's enough land? And is that something that will be within reach of food businesses?
So I think, yeah, there's enough land globally. So sometimes one of the classic criticisms you hear of organic farming is, well, it's all very nice, but you can't feed the world. But actually, whether it's certified organic or not, you know, we have to farm differently. We're destroying the planet us at the moment. And actually, you can farm enough food using nature-friendly techniques. So that's what I meant by enough land. But also there is land available. You know, I think it's 70% of farmland in the UK. 70% of land is farming already. And there is land available in cities and peri-urban areas. You know, if we're creative about how we use that. Of course, we can't feed the whole city, but we can grow more in the city and re-engage people fundamentally with how their food is.
And just thinking about the title of our session, for you, is the most radical part of Sitopia Farm the fact that you're growing food in the city, or the fact that you're reconnecting people with food and on a mission to educate and inform?
I think both, and sadly, we're radical because we are not using chemical fertilizers or pesticides to grow our food. We're not having monocultures. We grow a couple of hundred different varieties of things and are farming in tune with nature rather than avoiding it or destroying it.
Hold on to your questions for Chloë for now, because Daniel, let's turn to you. You've also been thinking about food production in cities and taking a completely different approach.
Oh, let me see if I can get this to work.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, that's me. So, yeah, I will say, though, actually, before I start, that it was incredibly nice listening to that, because actually a lot of the talking points are fundamentally the same. And it sort of reinforces an idea that I consider to be very important, which is that none of these solutions are in conflict with each other. None of these solutions needs to be a silver bullet, to your point, Dan, earlier. They're all small parts of a systems level view, each of which can be a very important thing, but fundamentally have to be seen in a holistic sense to have any kind of meaningful impact. Just a bit more about us. So I'm Daniel, I'm the CEO of Crate to Plate. We are an urban, indoor, vertical farming business in London. We set up our first farm in Canary Wharf in 2020, so we've been operating since then. With the fundamental objective of having people, of being able to supply people with better, tastier, more aromatic, more nutritious food all year round that's grown close to where it's consumed, so it's more sustainably produced. I actually don't need to dwell very long on this slide because a lot of it overlaps with what Chloë was talking about. But ultimately, this is the problem that we're looking to address. Food systems globally are an enormous emitter of greenhouse gases. For context, it probably represents about 10 times the emissions the air travel does. And that tends to be a topic that gets people a little more wound up, actually, than food, but they're often looking in the wrong place. Our food comes from very, very far. That obviously has an environmental consequence, but it also has a nutritional one. Plants lose nutrient density with each day after harvest. So if you're consuming something that's been grown thousands of miles away and was probably harvested several days ago, you're actually consuming a less nutritious product than something that was harvested, this morning or yesterday, and that's sort of what we try to hold ourselves to, is to supply food basically a day after it was harvested. Globally, we need to produce 70% more food by 2050. This is what sort of some studies suggest. I mean, this is basically based on assumptions around population growth over time. It is a sad reality that we produce basically all the food that we need, which unfortunately is not the same thing as people who need it getting it. That is a massive problem. But even with that, even knowing how much food is wasted, we still, if we project out, have to produce more than we currently do. And if you couple that with the fact that in the UK we import most fresh produce for most of the year, being able to grow more of our food ourselves is a food security imperative. It's not going to be a luxury. It's something that we have to try to tackle. And one of the ways that we're trying to do that is by farming indoors and farming vertically. So how do we help tackle those problems? So as I say, we grow vertically in a controlled environment where we control factors like temperature, humidity, nutrient content of the water, pH level of the water, airflow, light schedules, watering schedules, so that we can produce we can produce food all year round with consistent quality and reliability. Because of the way that we grow, this isn't the only way to achieve this, obviously, but we're able to do it in part because of the fact that we grow indoors. We can also grow completely without pesticides and toxic chemicals. We use, obviously, physical barriers instead. And grow with immense water efficiency. I mean, it's estimated that these systems use something like 95% less water than traditional agriculture to produce the same amount of food, and obviously using a fraction of the land. When I talk about taking a sort of systems level view of this, one of the things that I mean is that what I think is that by taking certain things that can be grown using this method, and not everything can, but taking things that can be grown indoors and moving them indoors, you can make better use of existing land and resources that can then be used for arable purposes. So essentially, be able to make better use of things like crop rotation, not over-farm soil, because you've got more land for the things that you actually need it for, and alleviate issues like nutrient depletion within soil and biodiversity depletion in the soil. And obviously, as I mentioned, because the consumer can get it shortly after harvest, we're also providing a more nutritious product as well. Here are just some, to give you a sense of what I'm talking about, here are some pictures inside the farms. These are from our farms in Canary Wharf. We use slightly different technologies for different purposes, depending on what we're trying to achieve, and what grows best in what system. Here we've got some vertical growing walls. In the middle photo, you can see our LED lights on, that kind of pinkish purplish is basically a combination of red and blue, which is the colors on the spectrum that the plants need to photosynthesize. And here from one of our other sites, where we have instead stacked horizontal levels. Essentially, it's fundamentally the same thing, but essentially different products seem to grow best in different systems, and we just kind of manage our production accordingly. This here is our latest addition. We set up our first mushroom farm earlier this year. This is from our farm in Stratford, where we're growing grey oyster and lion's mane mushroom. This is a different bit of technology. It doesn't use hydroponics, but a really wonderful sort of bit of circularity in terms of how these are produced. So the mushrooms grow on a substrate made from waste coffee grounds, straw, and fungal spores, and not much else. And then they fruit in the right environmental conditions. And then when you harvest the substrate bags, it then makes a fantastic compost. So it's kind of a wonderful little addition to what we've been doing. We're kind of really excited to continue to expand it. This gives a sense of what we grow. So we grow a range of lettuces, leafy greens, herbs, microgreens, and mushrooms, and have some ongoing R&D in some other product areas. One I'm most excited about is probably berries, strawberries and blueberries, which is something that in the next couple of years I think that we'll be able to crack in some form, but not yet. Just another thing I wanted to touch on in terms of an important aspect of our philosophy and what we try to do is around this question of food waste. So one of the things that we have done is basically take some of our produce, some of our surplus produce, and convert it into other things. So sauces, oils, dressings, dips, and that sort of stuff. And this is what we've come up with so far, our sort of range of our initial 4 products, all made with the same kind of core principles that we have in our fresh produce business, where we're going after the highest quality, most nutritious version of the food, and everything with no artificial stabilizers or preservatives or anything like that, just with a complete focus on flavor and aroma and overall quality. Helpfully, you were all given samples, I think, of our salad with the dressing. I hope you enjoyed it. I mean, it's sort of a fairly kind of limited look at what we do, but the thing that we hope to bring out, even with something as simple as that, is that lettuce can and should be better than what we're used to. Lettuce tends to be a bit of a sort of bulker of something that you make taste nice with other stuff that you put into it. And it doesn't need to be that way. You just need a kind of higher quality variety grown in a better way. And so what the dressing tries to do, and in my opinion, absolutely spectacular product, but it's made using our basil and our garlic chives, which we grow in the farms, and it's supposed to be kind of subtle, balanced flavors where you really bring out the herbs, but don't overwhelm the salad. It's about complementing, not overpowering, and so sort of kind of making simple whole food interesting and wonderful. That's sort of what we go about. Just a little bit more about how we sell and where we operate. We sell to restaurants and sort of local grocery stores across London. We're very proud of our customer list. I mean, we sell to some of the sort of highest end, most discerning sort of restaurant chefs and most premium greengrocers. I mean, most recently added to that list was Whole Foods in London, and really that's a testament to the quality of product that we sell. They come to us because they get a better product from us, and I don't think they would keep coming to a small supplier like us if that wasn't true. We also sell direct to the consumer, though it's a sort of smaller part of our business. So we do sell online for home delivery. It's something that I would love to grow more, but haven't had much sort of bandwidth to tackle meaningfully. I just wanted to close with a quick thought about where we go from here. So we have 4 sites to date. We grow everything, in repurposed 40-foot shipping containers, of which we have 10 spread across our 4 sites. Now, containers have been a very useful way for us to get established, and they've allowed us to learn an enormous amount about what to grow, how to grow it, and how to sell it. But they have important limitations in terms of enabling us to scale. So where we're looking to go from here is to move away from the kind of hyper-local containerized model into something that's local, but in some senses a little bit less local. And a bit larger scale, so retrofitting growing equipment into larger indoor spaces. And so it's kind of coupling all of the lovely elements about what we do with a stronger commercial viability as we expand, so that we can have a bigger impact in solving the problems that we're looking to solve by bringing our production costs down, with it our prices down, and addressing a more mass market opportunity and overall having a larger impact. Yeah, thank you very much.
2 quick questions from me, Daniel. One is about the food, one is about the business. In terms of food, we were hearing from Chloe about, we're just glimpsing the complexity of soil in terms of nutrients and also the soil microbiome as well. How confident can you be that food grown in a hydroponic system is comparable to food coming out of that complex organic soil system?
It's a good question and an important question. The answer is actually very confident. I mean, So if we take what we do and compare it to what we normally buy in the supermarket, so stuff that is grown in a field on an industrial scale, so sort of not really comparing to something like a Sitopia. When you grow commercially in a field, farmers select produce for reasons that have nothing to do with your experience as a consumer when you eat the food. They have to, by necessity, select for things like robustness of crop, resilience against pest, resilience against disease, resilience against fluctuations in temperature or amounts of rain. And as a result, you don't always get the nicest tasting, most nutritious, whatever it is, product. Whereas we select only for flavor, aroma, texture, and nutritional profile. So firstly, by selecting varieties that are better, that's already a pretty good starting point, and that's enabled by the fact that we don't contend with those elements. And then the other thing is that the plants get the sort of fairly optimum amount of nutrients relative to what they need, and we can be pretty confident in what we're delivering to them. Now, if you compare that with what they'd get in the soil, in healthy soil, they'd get sort of the same. I mean, it would be quite comparable, I think. I suppose the difference is that when you grow in the soil, you're not always growing in healthy soil, and so you might actually get more nutrient deficient crops coming out of it if the soil itself is nutrient deficient. So I think that overall, I think we stack up pretty well.
Okay. On the business side of things, there's been huge investment in this sector and some quite big failures as well. So does the business model actually work?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So not every business model works is the simple answer, unfortunately. If we look at what has happened in the vertical farming space, it hasn't been particularly helpful to us in terms of having an overarching, quite negative narrative in the last 2 or 3 years. What I would say is that we are doing things quite differently from what has been the conventional wisdom in the sector up till now. Where most of the investment capital has been deployed has been in building very large warehouse-sized production facilities, which by design have to address the largest scale of market opportunity in the country. So if you build something enormous and you're growing lettuce, say, you sort of box yourself in to going after the largest volume customer targets. You basically go after, the largest supermarkets, as an example. And the economics of what we do isn't quite there yet, I would say, in terms of cost of production, compared with an agricultural supply chain that has been optimized over a long, long time, many, many decades, mostly focused on one metric, which is cost, and not necessarily food quality. And so when you go after the highest volume, lowest cost, lowest margin, toughest customer base, that model is going to fall apart. What we try to do is to basically produce a premium product initially for a sort of premium audience, and make it work with those dynamics effectively.
Okay, thank you. As I go further away from me, I feel like we're getting even more radical. Because we end on a project like no other I've come across. It originates from the world of design, and even if purely as an act of storytelling, although they are extremely serious about this becoming something that we end up eating, after hearing about this project, at the very least, you will never think about chicken in the same way again. So over to Sarawat, Kitty Banthorne, and Tom Washington.
Hello everyone, I'm Tom and this is Sarawat. We're co-founders of Kera Protein. Kera Protein is the company that makes food from chicken feathers. Now, for some context, we started this business as a small startup business a couple of years ago now. But actually, this is part of a longer project that was the follow-up of Sarawat's university research just around the corner at Central St Martin. So I'm going to hand over to him to talk a little bit more about his journey with this project.
Sure, thank you, Tom. So a bit of like background from both of us. So both of us, we are not like food scientists or like having technical knowledge in like food before, but like we are both designers. My background, I did my BA in architecture, and then I did like my MA in a course called like material futures. So basically it was like taught by like combining design, technology, and like innovation, like combine things and come up with something. But like my passion is always in food, because like my family business also like running food business back in Thailand as well. So yeah, it was like when I was doing my MA, I was finding like, okay, what should be like a research topic that I want to come up with. But I always like, okay, it has to be food. It has to be food. So yeah, I've just like come up with. I just saw this problem in the global like scale, that like we consuming chicken for its own meat, but like we throwing away feathers. It's not like chicken is not an animal similar to like cow or pig, where we like they can use every part of them, but like we have like used chicken for its own meat, and we throwing away the feathers. So yeah, just a bit of like to set up the scene. So we throwing away a lot of chicken feathers, and those waste stream, if you kind of like connect them like feathers by feathers, it could travel the world 5,000 to 7,000 times. So which is, yeah, this waste stream creates a lot of like pollution. So it could create up to 28 methane, like 28 million tons of methane every year. And also it also like create, like everyone knows, like carbon dioxide, which is it create like enormous like numbers. But like in the EU itself, it create about like 3.1 million tons of chicken feathers every year. So yeah, those feathers like normally that goes to like two routes. The first one is go to incineration, which is like the incineration plant that it consume a lot of energy. Like the plant that like try to get rid of this chicken feather waste, they consume like the energy more than they're producing new coal plant. And also lots of chicken feathers go to landfilling, which is similar. It's the same organic material as like our hair, which is everyone knows it takes such a long time to degrade. So that caused a lot of issue in that area, where it's like these feathers spoil the soil, and that when that soil got spoiled, it's also affect to the water resource nearby. So it's an origin of like spreading disease to that local area. So that's why we have the vision, like this is not, I mean, it is something hidden into the poultry industry, but not everyone talk about. It's not like microplastic or like single-use plastic. So I think Tom's going to talk about our company vision.
Yeah, I mean, the key vision and what kind of separates us from potentially other alternative proteins is the key message of stop throwing away protein, whereas other maybe plant-based businesses or even insect proteins go to a certain extent of being more sustainable. But I feel like we go one step further about actually solving a waste issue. You know, the protein's just sitting there, and it could be converted into an edible product. So yeah, we're kind of killing two birds with one stone in a sense of, you know, you're increasing food security whilst also solving a waste issue. So that's how we kind of differentiate ourselves in the protein space.
Yep, so talking about hidden value of inside the chicken feathers. So yeah, we found, like we look in a different approach. So basically this waste stream has been kind of like noticed in the global issue already, but like lots of scientists, researchers, innovators, they're looking at like the physical property of it, but like we just like take another approach looking at the chemical aspect of like inside the chicken feathers. So basically we found that inside those chicken feathers it has 91% of the protein, and that protein has like 8 types of amino acid profile, which is suitable for our like human body consumption. So I'm just like had an idea like how we can access to those like free, kind of like not free, but like those kind of like valuable protein resource. So we took a technology called enzymatic hydrolysis. So basically using the enzyme called keratinase, it's like small living organism to like digest that like the actual feathers. Like you see on the screen is like from one end to another end. So basically the process is like letting the enzyme to digest it into we get an amber solution at the end. So we as a business, we are on the lab scale startup, but like we've been working with the university, some researchers, and this like our current protocol to achieve this extraction process. It's been done in a lab for like 36 hours from extracting chicken feather into getting this like amber solution, and the efficiency rate is quite high, which is like the researchers, scientists, they're quite happy with this outcome, which is like we achieve 80% of efficiency. But comparing to the other alternative protein, for example, like pea protein, the efficiency rate that they can achieve is about 60%. So I just want to highlight like this is such a kind of like high potential alternative protein that we could look at. So yeah, again, as we are a designer, we just feel like all that, like all the extraction process, it could be done just by the scientists, but we wanted to kind of like add another layer into this project, and we just think like, okay, what's gonna be the best approach to bring this to reality? How we gonna integrate this into our like reality, like how the consumer will accept this. So basically, there was a lot of like stigma images that is like circulate around this chicken feather waste. People think this is a sheep protein source, it's so dirty, it's not clean enough to be eaten. So we set that like challenges as like a starting point, and we want to kind of like overcome with like the outcome. So we came up with an idea: what if like the protein that throwing away from chicken, we can rebirth it, like giving another life for it and making like a meat-like product similar to what they want to eat from the animal. So we call a better meat. Obviously, we integrate like our protein extraction extract to to value up the protein content into the product. And also another like niche and unique point of this keratin protein is it has high antioxidant, which is the other alternative protein doesn't provide. So yeah, it's basically at the same time you gain the protein, but at the same time you have like antioxidant equivalent to you consuming berries. So yeah, I just want to highlight when it comes to this scenario, like every million tons of birds has been like slaughtering, but we can save quite like thousands of them. So basically, if it comes to this scenario, we can extract like protein from feathers. Basically, one chicken we can gain 10% extra of the protein from them, and this could like help us in terms of like contributing to the global food security as well. So it will be less land use, water use, energy consumption, transportation, and etc. A bit of highlight, because yeah, we as a designer, that was kind of like what we want to launch as a business, but also we want to highlight, okay, what we have done in terms of experimentation, like what kind of like food form that we were thinking. The first one was like, what if this could be like food for the future to support like aging society? like this could be like food, like meat that that everyone could enjoy. It could melt in the mouth because of like the structure form that we created, but at the same time the nutrition value we can gain it from the protein from feathers. And a few experimentation here, like feta crackers. The middle one is like zero carb pasta, which is like high protein pasta basically. You can gain like protein at the same time, reducing waste at the same time. And another one is like a rice paper wrap made from chicken feta protein. Yeah, just like a bit of like conclude my section. I want to highlight that chicken feta is not just like sheep protein source that's associated to like dirtiness or like it's very cheap. It could be something that could be added into like fancy restaurant or Michelin star restaurant in the future.
Yeah, so on that note, a big part of our strategy and what we've been doing in the kind of shorter term of the business is changing people's perceptions of consuming what is essentially a waste product. 'Cause people have all these negative associations with consuming feathers. But what we've done is kind of rebranding what eating feathers means or what novel food consumption is. So rather than feathers being a waste product, we see them as a delicacy and an innovation. And how do we get people to associate with these things? We thought we would create these like bespoke supper clubs where people would have to like buy the tickets and attend these like we did like an 8-course meal of using chefs, and they would see the feather meat presented in all these different forms, demonstrating its versatility. But also it's a premium event of it not just being the food that's premium, but the whole experience. And through this way is kind of breaking down those negative associations. So we've done 3 of these events now, some sponsored by some brands in different areas of London. We did one at South London Gallery, a place in Earl's Court, and a place called the Boathouse. We're on a little barge boat. But despite these were obviously quite just fun things to do at the start of a business, we think it's quite like a unique approach. But yeah, we really think that this is a theme in our branding that we want to continue about, you don't just want to kind of stack them high, sell them cheap. You need an introduction to the market that's quite novel, and we think entering at maybe like a higher price point and being presented as a more premium brand, and actually, as Sarawat said earlier, a better meat is the way forward. What was also interesting about these events is that we actually had some vegans and vegetarians attend and try all the food. And they were happy to do so because of how ethical and sustainable the protein is. So it's quite interesting to think about of it as like a kind of compromise between an animal-based diet and a plant-based diet. And maybe this is the future of food, where it kind of, something like this really embraces the flexitarian diet. Here are some examples of some of the ways the food was packaged by the chefs. We had some great chefs. This was called like Asian fusion food. And yeah, you can see like a croquette at the start where we had, it was like a kind of, actually no, more of a kind of Scotch egg type thing where the protein was like minced in the center. You kind of had satay chicken feathers. And what was the last dish again?
The last dish was kind of like they infused our protein in the Sichuan pepper sauce and glazed with honey.
Tom, I want to get a question in before we hand over 2 questions.
Sure.
So it's not approved for human consumption in terms of supply chains. You can't send it out to shops, for example. There's a regulatory process for novel foods you haven't gone through yet. But my understanding is your immediate, the next, or the first step in turning this into a product would be thinking about agriculture and, in fact, aquaculture?
Yes, so this is an opportunity of maybe we can enter the market sooner because, as you mentioned, for this to be fully commercialized, you need to go through something called the novel foods process, which can take like 2 years, and the products like all these new CBD products have to go through it, and insect proteins, for example. In the shorter term, we've actually been presented the opportunity of this could enter the market in agriculture quite quickly. I mean, especially outside Europe, it could almost happen almost immediately, depending on the opportunity. Aquaculture that you pointed out in particular is something that could work really well as keratin protein, which is the protein that we extracted, it's been proven to be very good as fish food. They do it to a certain extent already, actually, so they use something called feather meal, but it's not broken down in the same way. They use heat to hydrolyze the protein, and it's basically an incomplete protein, and you're not accessing all the amino acids. By using enzymes, we're able to make a far more complete protein and a far more premium product. And this is important because we can, the main thing about our protein is to solve the waste issue. And in order to do that, you need to solve the problem at a great scale. So having a very pure protein source and having that availability of going into human consumption, going into agriculture, and being able to integrate into all these different forms is the way that you can really have that solution. So you kind of demonstrating the most utility in that sense.
Tom, Sarah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We promised you radical. We gave you radical. So, can we have some questions? One over here, please.
Is it working? Yeah. I think you might just have answered the question. The protein you extract from the feather is the keratin, yes? And it's only one protein, and it doesn't depend on which kind of chicken. It's all the feathers from any chicken, you end up with keratin. Is that what you're saying?
So basically, I think each type of chicken has their own kind of like types of like keratin, but like we specifically looking at like boiler chicken. So basically like the chicken that they were like raised for like in the big kind of like scale industry. So yeah, but this breed specifically, like we alter our protocol to extract the feathers to suit to that feather types.
Okay.
If
And
that
how
makes
many
sense.
amino acids you get out of the keratin?
Pardon?
The protein keratin, it's made of amino acid, I'm guessing. How many?
Like 8 types.
Eight
Like, I mean, maybe it's more than 8 types, but like
And
we
are
just
some
like.
of them essential amino acids?
Pardon?
You know, you have some essential amino acids. Do you have, as part of the 8 of them, are there any of them which are essential amino acids?
Yes, so there's 9 types of essential amino acids. We have like eight types of amino acids, but I mean, depending on our lab protocol, so we're working with some labs, they think that we could get more, essentially, depending on how we adjust our protocol. So.
Okay, another question, please.
Thank you for the presentations. I would like to have a question to Kera Protein, because in the future we know that there will be less opportunity for everyone to access to high quality protein, and there will be some people having no access, maybe real food. So, but I understand the motivation behind your proposition around premium entry to the market, but if you look at from a global perspective, so you would like to leverage this West in a better way for a sustainable world, but you would like to have a premium entry, whereas I would like to understand what is the conversion of this total waste into this new product, and have you ever considered using this innovative design to give access to underserved population for better food, because that could be another world, right? And I understand all this premium positioning coming from 3 different sides. Yeah.
Quick responses here, because I want to get another question in as well. So.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, we have thought about like to be honest, this should be accessible for everyone, but it just like cost of production at first. Like we can't make the cost that like down to like, for example, like compared to the chicken fat, like chicken meat, but also what we kind of like we following the footstep of like how they produce, like introduce insect to the world. So at first, like putting in a high position, it's just not about like it's good for the business, but also it's kind of like break, like people will perceive this is like kind of like a premium product, and then it will kind of like make people open-minded more, like seeing this is like innovative and premium. It is like it could be a strategy to like make people to accept more about this
And is this a model in which the poultry industry could be paying you to produce this protein?
Potentially. I mean, that's the idea. I mean, we'd have to fit into existing food systems, particularly working with like abattoirs as a waste solution. I think just to answer the question, it's important to remember as well that actually the product is not the food that we showed in the food events. It's the powder. So actually the powder allows us quite a lot of flexibility where it could be integrated into all sorts of foods to offset the protein content of less sustainable protein. So it doesn't have to be our expensive 100% novel protein straight away. There's ways that we could integrate it, and particularly in the long term when we achieve economies of scale, it will become a lot more affordable, yes.
Okay. Polly and Joe have given me the thumbs up on 5 more minutes if we're all okay to stay for a couple more questions. Can we have a... Yep. Over there. Thank you.
I have a question for Chloe. Thank you so much for telling us about Sitopia. I'm just curious if you have plans to open more farms or like train anyone in other cities to set up their own farm using your model.
Yeah, we'd love to. So we're only be going 4 years. I've got a 2.5-year-old, I should say, so it's been busy. One of the things actually that's blown my mind in the short time I've been doing it is that people have come and either worked with us or come on courses, volunteered, have now gone and set up their own farms. So that's actually kind of happening already. Yes, we have, whether we set up own farms or we're on a wider farm as well, working in partnership with them, there's lots of opportunities there to grow more food and do more as well. Yeah. Okay. Would love to.
We have one over here. Polly, thank you. Thanks.
This is a question for crate to plate. All the energy cost of all the artificial lighting, heating, climate control, moisture control must add a very significant cost element to producing it in environmental terms as well as financial terms. How do you square that issue?
It's an important question, and it has been a contributor to the downfall of some of the players in the space, to be sure. I address it in the following way. So it's there are 2 elements here, as you say, the environmental and the financial. So I'll take them in turn. So on the environmental side, if you compare a sort of end-to-end carbon analysis of the supply chain of a vegetable grown where these things are grown, often very far, as far afield as places like Kenya, India, Israel, whatever it is, in the ground to its point of consumption, it compares quite similarly to growing something locally using only grid power that's not from renewables. And so if that's your baseline, the point is that you can't adjust the former, but you can improve the latter. The efficiency of renewable energy production is improving all the time, and you have a mechanism for solving that problem. So as it stands, you could fully power a farm like ours with renewable sources, using solar on site, using some wind, using some anaerobic digestion, all sorts of other things, or at least partially power. And actually, the point of it is that you can consider the power generation infrastructure as an upfront element of how you plan for the build of a farm. So it's a kind of, you move in a positive direction, and actually you could go to a fully neutral position, basically, by doing it in that way. That's the environmental challenge, but it's one that we do grapple with, because I think that it's the most legitimate green criticism of what we do. On the financial side, it's sort of the same answer. The thing is that right now we solve the problem by being a premium product that is at premium quality and priced at a premium. As as we scale, the more of your power that is done, that comes from cheaper renewable sources, and again, it's a very solvable problem, the lower your cost comes down. But it's one of what I'd say are the big three costs of doing what we do, which is rent, labor, and utilities.
Thank you. And there we need to end. But can you hang around after if people want to ask you questions outside? So if you do have any questions, then come and find the team here. But Tom, Sarawat, Daniel, Chloe, thank you so much for brilliant storytelling. And I'll be following your progress over the months and years as well. So good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan, for steering such a fascinating conversation. And thank you, Tom, Sarawat, Daniel, and Chloe for being up for having this conversation, because I sort of found out about all of you, I found out all about your projects, what you do. I've been to Sitopia Farm, I've eaten the chicken feather nuggets, they were delicious, and I have been reading about Create to Plate, and the thought of bringing them all together in a conversation just felt like really fascinating, and it also felt like very, very British Library food season. So I'm so proud that this is ending the last session of the 2025 British Library food season. Please come back, think of the food season. What we try and do is bring together as many ideas about food, think about the food through, think about the world through the lens of food, whether it's the history of Mexican food, whether it's the culture of martini, or whether it is the future of food. I like to think that the martini people have a slight hangover now, and we all feel nutritious and righteous, which is great. Just a couple of things I want to say to you. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Mila, who are our sponsors. We couldn't do the food season without them. They're excellent. As Melissa told us earlier in another session, they sell great hoovers. I want to thank the amazing food season team, Joe Allen, Melissa Thompson, Angela Clutton, and everybody at the British Library who makes this possible. I'd like to implore you to do two things. Number one is to vote for the Food Season Food Hero Award. We have got an amazing shortlist of 8 people who are really changing and shaping the food system and food culture in the UK, from an amazing cheesemaker, independent cheesemaker, to a woman who is really shaping how we think about food and older people, to an incredible community food kitchen, and it's being voted on by you, by the public. It closes tonight at midnight, and there should be a QR code, which I think Sav will very kindly flash up on here, and you can all vote. Please do. The final thing is that if you go to the bookshop and ask for under the counter for one of these, this is a guide to English language food collections at the British Library. It was written by Ruby Tando. If any of you are interested in thinking about food, writing about food, we have amazing food collections, and Ruby gives you a kind of shorthand tour into those collections. So do grab that. But you have to ask the bookshop, because we felt like that would prove that you were really interested and you definitely wanted it, rather than it would just go in your bag and then be thrown away. So they're free. Anyone can have one. So once again, thank you to this amazing panel. Thank you for being part of the food season. And thank you to you for also being part of the food season.